A frozen field outside Daventry, England. February 26, 1935. Morning mist hangs over the Northamptonshire countryside. Inside a converted Morris ambulance, now a makeshift laboratory, two men huddle over a cathode ray tube. The screen glows green in the darkness. Arnold Wilkins adjusts the dials. Robert Watson Watt stares at the display, waiting. Outside, two receiving antennas stand in the farmer's field, erected the night before in secrecy. 6 miles away, towering over Burrow Hill, the BBC's shortwave transmitter pumps invisible radio waves into the cold air. A continuous beam of electromagnetic energy shooting out across the English countryside. Above them, somewhere in the gray sky, Flight Lieutenant R.S. Bluck pilots a Handley Page Hayford bomber. He's been told to fly a specific route, to fire a Viré light when he arrives, to follow the BBC's radio beam at 6,000 feet, then turn around, descend to 1,000 feet, and fly back. The men in the van wait. 3 witnesses stand behind them. Representatives from the Air Ministry. They've been told this demonstration will change everything. They look skeptical. The bomber appears, but it's off course, too far east. Nothing on the screen. Bluka corrects. Closer now. Following the beam. The green line on the cathode ray tube flickers, rises, falls, rises again. They're tracking him. Watson Watt watches the oscillations. The bomber is reflecting the BBC's radio waves back to their receiver. The signal strength changes as the aircraft moves through the beam, up and down. A pattern, a rhythm, a heartbeat in the sky. They can see an airplane without seeing it. Watson Watt turns to the Air Ministry representatives and declares something extraordinary, something that will be repeated for generations. Britain has become an island once more. He means it. For centuries, Britain's island status protected it from invasion. The English Channel kept armies at bay. But in 1935, with German bombers able to reach London in minutes, that protection vanished. Until today. Today, they've proven they can detect aircraft before they arrive. Track them. Know they're coming. Give fighters time to intercept. Britain is an island again. But how did these two men end up in a freezing field, tracking invisible radio waves on a Tuesday morning? The answer begins 1 month earlier, with a request for something impossible. January 1935. London. The Air Ministry is in a panic. Newspapers across Europe are screaming about Nazi Germany's secret weapon, a death ray, a beam of electromagnetic energy that can destroy aircraft at a distance, melt engines, kill pilots, stop propellers mid-flight. German scientists claim they're close to perfecting it. Some reports say they already have. The British public is terrified. Letters flood the government. Citizens demanding answers. What will we do when the death rays come? H.E. Wimperis, Director of Scientific Research at the Air Ministry, knows he needs to respond. But how? Does Germany actually have this weapon? Could Britain build one first? He turns to a committee led by Sir Henry Tizard, a chemist and former Royal Flying Corps officer. The Committee for the Scientific Survey of Air Defense. Their job? Figure out how to protect Britain from aerial attack. And right now, everyone wants to know about the death ray. Tizard knows exactly who to ask. Robert Watson Watt, Superintendent of the Radio Research Station, descendant of James Watt, the man who perfected the steam engine and powered the Industrial Revolution. In January 1935, Wimperis sends Watson Watt a simple question. Can you build us a death ray? Watson Watt was born in 1892 in Brecon, Scotland. The son of a carpenter, his childhood home sat in the shadow of the Round Tower, a medieval relic from Viking times. He wasn't supposed to be a scientist. But a professor at university saw something in him, encouraged him to study radio waves. The invisible energy that Guglielmo Marconi had just proven could carry messages across the Atlantic. Watson Watt became obsessed with thunderstorms. He built equipment to track lightning, to detect the electromagnetic pulses from lightning strikes miles away, to map storms before they arrived. He wanted to give pilots warning, help them avoid the deadly clouds. His work caught the attention of the government. They hired him to run the radio research station, to push the boundaries of what radio waves could do. Now, in January 1935, they're asking if radio waves can kill. Watson Watt assigns the task to his assistant, Arnold Wilkins, a brilliant young scientist with a gift for mathematics. The question: how much electromagnetic energy would you need to destroy an aircraft or incapacitate its crew? Wilkins does the calculations. The answer is devastating. To generate enough energy to kill a pilot at any useful distance would require millions of watts of power. The kind of power that doesn't exist in portable form. Even if you could build such a device, it would be massive, stationary, visible from miles away, and it would drain the entire electrical grid of London just to kill one person. The death ray is impossible. On February 4, 1935, Watson, Watt, and Wilkins report back to the Tizard Committee. They deliver the bad news. Germany doesn't have a death ray. Nobody does. Nobody can. The laws of physics won't allow it. The committee should have been disappointed. Instead, something extraordinary happens. Wilkins has been thinking, if you can't use radio waves to destroy an aircraft, what if you could use them to detect an aircraft? He'd been receiving reports from post office engineers. Strange interference whenever planes flew near BBC radio masts. The radio signals would flutter, distort, change. The aircraft were reflecting the radio waves. What if that reflection could be measured, tracked, used to locate the aircraft before it arrived? Wilkins mentions this to Watson Watt. Watson Watt's mind explodes with possibilities. He'd spent years tracking lightning with radio equipment, detecting electromagnetic pulses at a distance. This was the same principle. Send out a radio wave, detect what bounces back, but instead of tracking storms, they'd track bombers. The mathematics are brutal. The reflected signal would be almost nothing, 1/10 of 1 quintillionth of the original transmission. That's 0.00001 of the power. But Watson Watt has an insight. If you increase the transmitter power, if you build more sensitive receivers, if you amplify the signal, it might work. On February 12, 1935, Watson Watt presented a new proposal to the Tizard Committee. We can't build a death ray, but we can build something better. A detection system. Radio waves that bounce off enemy aircraft and tell us exactly where they are, miles before they reach Britain's shores. The committee is intrigued. Air Vice Marshal Hugh Dowding is not. He demands proof, a demonstration. Show us this actually works, or stop wasting our time. Watson Watt agrees. They have 22 days to prove it's possible. 22 days to save Britain from the coming storm. Here's the problem nobody's saying out loud. Britain is defenseless. Stanley Baldwin, the former Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party, said it plainly in November 1932, in a speech to Parliament that haunted the nation. I think it is also for the man in the street to realize that there is no power on earth that can protect him from being bombed. Whatever people may tell him, the bomber will always get through. He wasn't exaggerating. In 1935, bombers are faster than fighters. The new generation of twin-engine bombers like the American B-10 could outrun any biplane fighter trying to intercept them. German airfields sit just 20 minutes from London. A bomber could take off from France, drop its payload, and return, home before British fighters even reached altitude. There was no warning system, no way to know they were coming until you heard the engines overhead. By then, it was too late. The previous solution had been acoustic mirrors, giant concrete dishes built along the coast, designed to amplify the sound of approaching aircraft. They were useless. By the time you heard the bombers, they were already on top of you. Baldwin's speech concluded with a nightmare scenario. The only defense against bombing was offense. You had to kill more women and children more quickly than the enemy if you want to save yourselves. This was Britain's future. Mutual annihilation. Cities in flames, civilians slaughtered from the sky, unless Watt could make radio waves see the invisible. 22 days. February 26, 1935. They're back in the field. The converted ambulance, the cathode ray tube, the green glowing line. The demonstration works. For 8 minutes, they track flight Lieutenant Bluck's bomber as it flies back and forth through the BBC's radio beam. The reflected signal rises and falls with perfect consistency. A clear, undeniable pattern. They can detect aircraft at a distance. The Air Ministry representatives are stunned. Watt has just invented radar, though they won't call it that for another few years. For now, it's called RDF. Radio Direction Finding, a deliberately vague name to hide what it actually does. The teasered committee immediately grants Watt $10,000, a fortune in 1935. Move your equipment to Orfordness, they tell him, a remote coastal location in Suffolk. Set up a proper laboratory. Develop this system, make it work at greater distances. By June 1935, they're tracking aircraft at 16 miles. By December, 60 miles. By 1936, they've moved to Bawdsey Manor, a sprawling estate on the Suffolk coast. They're building towers, 350 feet tall, installing transmitters powerful enough to push radio waves over the horizon. They're building the defense system that will save Britain. But there's a problem. Watt has a philosophy he calls the cult of the imperfect. Give them the third best to go on with. The third best will come on time. The second best will come too late. The best will never come at all. It means building something that works now, even if it's not perfect, even if there are flaws, even if the scientists want more time to refine it, because the Germans won't wait for perfection. And in 1939, Adolf Hitler will prove that time is the most precious resource of all. February 26, 1935. The frozen field outside Daventry. Only 3 men are allowed to witness what happens next. 3 representatives from the Air Ministry. That's it. No press, no politicians, no curious observers. This test is so secret that even the BBC doesn't know their transmitter is being used as a weapon. Watt and Wilkins crouch inside the converted Morris ambulance. The cathode ray tube glows green in the darkness. 2 receiving antennas stand in the farmer's field, erected under cover of night. 6 miles away, the BBC's shortwave transmitter on Burrow Hill pumps invisible radio waves into the cold February air. A continuous beam of electromagnetic energy shooting across the English countryside at the speed of light. Above them, Flight Lieutenant R.S. Bluck pilots his Handley Page Hayford bomber through the gray morning sky. He's been given precise instructions. Fly along the BBC's radio beam at 6,000 feet. Fire a very light when you arrive. Then turn around, descend to 1,000 feet and fly back. The men in the van wait. The bomber appears first as a distant speck, too far east, off course. Nothing on the screen. Blucka corrects. Closer now, following the beam. Then it happens. The green line on the cathode ray tube flickers, rises, falls, rises again. They're tracking him. The bomber is reflecting the BBC's radio waves back to their receiver. The signal strength changes as the aircraft moves through the beam, up and down. A pattern, a rhythm, a heartbeat in the sky. For 8 minutes, they watch the green line dance. Every movement of WWII's bomber creates a corresponding movement on the screen. Perfect correlation. Undeniable proof. They can see an airplane without seeing it. Watson Watt turns to the Air Ministry representatives. His declaration will echo through history. Britain has become an island once more. He's not being poetic. He's being literal. For centuries, Britain's island geography was its greatest defense. The English Channel kept invading armies at bay. Napoleon tried. The Spanish Armada tried. All failed because you can't march an army across water. But in 1935, the airplane changed everything. The Channel meant nothing when German bombers could reach London in 20 minutes. Britain's island protection had evaporated. Until today. Today, they've proven they can detect aircraft before they arrive, track them across the sky, know exactly where they're coming from. Give fighter pilots time to climb, intercept, destroy. Britain is an island again, protected not by water, but by invisible radio waves. The Air Ministry representatives are stunned, but not everyone believes. Frederick Lindemann, scientific advisor to Winston Churchill, thinks Watson Watt is chasing fantasy. Lindemann is convinced the future lies in infrared detection, heat-seeking devices that can spot the warmth of aircraft engines against the cold sky. He's wrong. Infrared can't see through clouds or fog. It has a range of only a few miles. It's useless for early warning. But Lindemann is influential, wealthy, well-connected. He has Churchill's ear, and he thinks radar is a waste of time and money. Watson Watt ignores him. The Tizard Committee immediately grants Watson Watt $10,000, a fortune in 1935, enough to build a proper laboratory, move beyond the converted ambulance. They send him to Orfordness, a desolate coastal spit in Suffolk, wind-battered, remote, perfect for secret testing. The race is on. By June 1935, they're tracking aircraft at 16 miles. By December, 60 miles. The mathematics were brutal. Remember, the reflected signal is 1/10 of 1 quintillionth of the original transmission. That's a decimal point followed by 17 zeros before you get to a number. But Watson Watt's insight was correct. More power, more sensitive receivers, better amplification. It works. In 1936, they moved to Bawdsey Manor, a Victorian mansion on the Suffolk coast, sprawling grounds, privacy, room to build. They start erecting towers, 350 feet tall, massive steel lattices reaching into the sky, visible for miles, impossible to hide. How do you keep a secret weapon secret when everyone can see it? Here's where Watson Watt's philosophy becomes crucial. He calls it the cult of the imperfect. His mantra: give them the third best to go on with. The third best will come on time. The second best will come too late. The best will never come at all. It's not about building the perfect system. It's about building a working system now. The scientists on his team hate it. They want more time, more tests, more refinements. They want to solve every problem before deployment. Watson Watt refuses, because every month they delay is a month Germany gets stronger. Every month they wait for perfection is a month Britain remains defenseless. Third best will save Britain. Perfect will get Britain killed. By 1937, they're building towers up and down the coast. A network, a chain, each station covering overlapping zones. No gaps, no blind spots. They call it Chain Home. By 1939, they have stations from the Shetland Islands to the Isle of Wight. 19 stations, each one capable of detecting aircraft over 100 miles away, transmitting that information instantly to fighter command. The towers stand like sentinels, 360 feet of steel proclaiming to the world, Britain has a new defense. But does it actually work? That's what the Germans want to know. In August 1939, weeks before war begins, Germany sends the LZ-130 Graf Zeppelin on a research mission along Britain's coast. Officially, it's testing radio equipment. Actually, it's spying. The Zeppelin drifts slowly down the English coastline. Enormous, impossible to miss. Inside, German engineers operate sophisticated radio receivers, listening, measuring, trying to understand what those mysterious towers are transmitting. They record strange signals, powerful pulses of radio energy, regular intervals, sweeping patterns. They fly home with their data. German intelligence analyzes everything. And they reach a conclusion that will determine the fate of nations. A conclusion that will either expose Britain's secret weapon or preserve it until the moment it's needed most. The Germans decide the towers are for long-range naval communications. Nothing more. Powerful transmitters for coordinating ships across the Atlantic. They completely miss what the towers actually do. It's the mistake that will save Britain. Because on September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. 2 days later, Britain declares war. And those towers, those naval communication towers, will track every single German aircraft that dares approach British airspace. The question is no longer whether radar works. The question is whether Britain has enough time to use it. August 2nd, 1939. A massive silver shape drifts along the English coast. The LZ-130 Graf Zeppelin, 803 feet long, larger than 2 football fields. Germany's second largest airship, named after the famous explorer. Officially, it's on a scientific research mission, testing radio equipment, studying atmospheric conditions. Nobody believes that. Inside the gondola, German intelligence officers operate sophisticated radio receivers. They're listening, recording, measuring every electromagnetic signal along Britain's coastline, because they've noticed something strange. Those towers, enormous steel structures, 360 feet tall, dotting the English coast from Scotland to the Isle of Wight, visible for miles, impossible to miss. What are they for? The Zeppelin drifts closer. The receivers pick up powerful radio pulses, regular intervals, sweeping patterns, frequencies around 20 to 30 megahertz. The German engineers record everything, take measurements, calculate power outputs. They return to Germany with their data. Intelligence analysts pore over the recordings, run calculations, consult with their own radio experts, and they reach a conclusion: long-range naval communications. The British are building a network of powerful transmitters to coordinate their Atlantic fleet. Nothing more. It's the most catastrophic intelligence failure of the war, because those towers aren't sending messages to ships. They're detecting aircraft. Every single plane that enters their coverage zone shows up on a screen somewhere in England. But how do you hide a secret weapon when it's 360 feet tall and visible across the countryside? Answer: you don't hide it. You just let people draw the wrong conclusion. The towers stand in pairs at each station. Transmitter towers and receiver towers. The transmitters send out radio waves in a fan-shaped beam, sweeping across the sky. The receivers listen for echoes. Here's how it works. Radio waves travel at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second. When they hit a metal object like an aircraft, some of that energy bounces back, returns to the receiver. By measuring the time between transmission and echo, you can calculate distance. The direction of the antenna tells you bearing. The strength of the return signal tells you roughly how high the aircraft is flying. It's an echo that sees. Watts and Watt didn't invent the principle. Scientists had known for years that radio waves reflect off objects, but nobody had figured out how to make it practical, how to detect such a faint signal, how to amplify it enough to be useful, how to display it in a way operators could understand. That's what Watts and Watt's team solved. But the technology is only half the story. Inside each chain home station, young women sit at glowing cathode ray screens. They're called WAF operators, Women's Auxiliary Air Force. Many are barely 20 years old. Denise Miley is one of them. She'll later recall staring at the green screens for hours, watching for the telltale blips that meant incoming aircraft. Each station has multiple operators working in shifts, around the clock, every day, no breaks. When a blip appears, the operator measures its position, plots it on a grid, calls it in to Fighter Command Headquarters via direct telephone line. This is where Watts and Watt's genius becomes clear. He didn't just build a detection system, he built an integrated defense network. The Dowding System, named after Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, the man who understood that technology alone wouldn't win battles. You needed coordination, integration, a system that connected detection to decision to action. Here's how it worked. Chain Home detects aircraft over the channel. Operators plot their position, altitude, heading. That information goes instantly to filter rooms. Officers in filter rooms analyze multiple reports, eliminate duplicate sightings, confirm real threats. Confirmed tracks go to Fighter Command Headquarters, a massive operations room with a giant map table. Young women called plotters move colored blocks representing aircraft across the map. Each color represents a different time interval. You can see at a glance where raiders are, where they're heading, how old the information is. Sector controllers watch the table, make decisions, scramble fighter squadrons to intercept, vector them toward the enemy using real-time updates from Chain Home. It's not just radar, it's command and control, information warfare. The first modern integrated air defense system. Winston Churchill visits Bawdsey Manor in June 1939. Watts and Watt gives him the tour, shows him the towers, the receivers, the displays. Churchill is impressed but worried. War is coming, everyone knows it. Will this system actually work when German bombers fill the sky? Watts and Watt can't answer that. Nobody can. They've tested it against friendly aircraft. But combat is different. Chaos is chaos, different. By September 1939, Britain has 19 Chain Home stations operational. By war's end, there will be 53. But there's a critical weakness. Chain Home can see aircraft over the ocean, detect them 100 miles away, track them as they approach. But the radar beams shoot outward and upward. They can't see directly overhead, can't track aircraft once they cross the coastline and fly inland. Enter the Observer Corps. 30,000 volunteers, mostly men too old for military service. They stand in observation posts across Britain with binoculars and telephones. When aircraft pass overhead, they identify them, estimate altitude and heading, call it in. Low-tech, simple, essential. The Observer Corps fills the gap that radar can't cover. Together, radar and human observers create complete coverage. No blind spots, no escape. The integration is everything. Phone lines connect every station, every observation post, every sector headquarters, every fighter airfield. Information flows in seconds. Decisions happen in minutes. Fighters scramble and intercept before bombers reach their targets. Watts and Watt barely sleeps in these years. His marriage suffers. His wife Margaret sees him rarely. He's consumed by the work. driven by the knowledge that every day of delay is a day Britain remains vulnerable. His team works through exhaustion, engineers solving problems that have never been solved before, operators training on equipment that barely existed a year ago. Everyone pushing toward the same goal: make it work before the war starts. They succeed, barely. September 1st, 1939. Germany invades Poland. September 3rd, 1939. Britain declares war on Germany. The chain home stations are operational. The doubting system is in place. The fighters are ready. The operators are trained. Now they'll find out if any of it actually works, because the German Luftwaffe is coming, and they have no idea Britain can see them. Summer 1940. The numbers are terrifying. Luftwaffe, 4,074 aircraft. Fighters, bombers, dive bombers. The most powerful air force ever assembled. Royal Air Force, 1,963 aircraft. Outnumbered 2-1. Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, is confident. 4 weeks, he tells Hitler. Give me 4 weeks and I'll destroy the RAF. Clear the skies, make Britain defenseless. Then comes Operation Sea Leon, the invasion. German troops crossing the Channel, tanks rolling through Kent, the swastika flying over London. Hitler sets the timeline. August 1940. 6 weeks to prepare. Destroy the RAF. Invade before autumn storms make the Channel crossing impossible. Britain has never been more vulnerable. France has fallen. Europe is conquered. The British Empire stands alone against Nazi Germany. Everything depends on those towers along the coast. July 10th, 1940. The first major raid. A formation of German bombers takes off from airfields in occupied France. 70 aircraft, heading northwest across the Channel. Target British shipping convoys. They're 100 miles from England when Chain Home detects them. A WAF operator at Ventnor Station sees the blips appear on her screen. She measures, plots, calls it in. Raid 20, 70-plus aircraft, Angels 15. That's 15,000 feet altitude. The information flows to filter room. Confirmed. Passed to Fighter Command headquarters. Controllers watch the plot develop on the map table. Calculate intercept points. Issue orders. RAF fighters scramble. Spitfires and Hurricanes, engines roaring, climbing hard. The German bombers are still 60 miles from the English coast when they see them. British fighters, waiting, at altitude, in perfect position. The Germans are stunned. How did they know we were coming? The interception rate on day 1 is 75%. 3/4 of all raids are met by fighters before reaching their targets. It's a miracle. Except it's not a miracle. It's radar. Here's what the Germans don't understand. Their bombers take off from French airfields. Chain Home sees them immediately, tracks them every second as they cross the Channel. British controllers know exactly where they're going, how high they're flying, how many aircraft in the formation. Fighter squadrons launch with perfect information. No guessing. No patrolling empty skies, hoping to spot the enemy. They're vectored to exact intercept points. Altitude, heading, timing. The Germans think Britain has hundreds more fighters than they actually do. How else could the RAF be everywhere at once? Göring is furious. The reports don't make sense. Every raid is intercepted. Every formation is met by fighters. Even small reconnaissance flights are jumped by Spitfires that seem to appear from nowhere. They're waiting for us, German pilots report. They know we're coming. Göring refuses to believe it. The British are just lucky. Or maybe they're using spies. Or perhaps the RAF has more squadrons than intelligence estimated. Then someone mentions the towers, those massive steel structures along the coast. Could they be detection equipment? Some kind of early warning system? Göring orders attacks on radar stations. August 12, 1940. The Luftwaffe hits Ventnor, Pevensey, Rye, Dover. Bombs rain down on the chain home stations. Direct hits. Transmitter buildings damaged. Towers shaking but still standing. Ventnor goes offline. The screen goes dark. The WAF operators evacuate. But Göring doesn't see devastation. He sees towers still standing, stations still transmitting within hours. From his perspective, the attacks achieved almost nothing. He makes a calculation, a fatal calculation. Radar stations are too difficult to destroy. The towers are too sturdy. The buildings can be quickly repaired. It's a waste of bombs and aircraft. August 15th, 1940. Göring issues his order. Stop attacking radar sites. Focus on airfields. Focus on factories. Focus on cities. Destroy the RAF on the ground. Kill their ability to produce new aircraft. It's the decision that loses the Battle of Britain. Here's what Göring didn't know. Only Ventnor was actually knocked offline, and only for 3 days. During those 3 days, engineers drove mobile transmitters to the site, broadcast fake signals, made it look like Ventnor was still operational. The Germans bought it, thought their attacks had failed, gave up. If they'd pressed the attack, if they'd systematically destroyed every chain home station, if they'd blinded Britain's early warning system, the Battle of Britain might have ended very differently. Instead, radar keeps working, and the interception rates keep climbing. By the end of August, 90%, 9 out of every 10 raids are met by fighters. Winston Churchill visits Fighter Command Headquarters, watches the operations room, the map table with its colored plots, the young women pushing blocks across the board, the calm voices of controllers directing life and death battles. Later, he says something extraordinary. It was as if Fighter Command had twice as many fighters as we actually possessed. He's exactly right. Radar doesn't give Britain more aircraft, but it makes every aircraft count double. No wasted patrols, no fighters circling empty sky. Every sortie is targeted. Every interception is precise. The human cost is still brutal. 544 RAF pilots killed between July and October 1940. Young men, most in their early 20s, climbing into cockpits knowing they might not return. But without radar, the numbers would have been catastrophic. Thousands dead, the RAF destroyed, Britain defenseless. The WAF operators work 16-hour shifts, staring at green screens until their eyes burn, plotting raids, calling coordinates, knowing that every mistake costs lives. The fighter pilots fly 4, 5, 6 sorties per day, exhausted, running on adrenaline and tea, climbing back into shot-up aircraft because there's nobody else. The entire nation holds its breath. September 15th, 1940. The day that will become known as Battle of Britain Day. The Luftwaffe launches its largest attack yet. Wave after wave of bombers, targeting London. Göring's final attempt to break unabated British morale. Chainholm sees them coming, all of them. Controllers scramble every available fighter. Squadrons from across southern England converge on the German formations. The battle rages all day. Dogfights over London. Bombers shot down. Fighters burning. The sky full of smoke and tracers. By evening, the Germans limp home. Massive losses. 60 aircraft destroyed. The RAF claims 185 kills. The actual number is lower. But the psychological impact is what matters. The Luftwaffe can't win. 2 days later, Hitler postpones Operation Celion indefinitely. The invasion is cancelled. Britain survives. Not because it had more aircraft, not because its pilots were braver, but because Watts and Watts towers along the coast gave Britain something Germany didn't have. Information, coordination, the ability to see the enemy coming and meet them with precision. Britain survives. But what happens to the man who made it possible? 1942. Robert Watson Watt is knighted by King George VI. Sir Robert Watson Watt, the man who saved Britain. 1943. The United States awards him the Medal for Merit, one of America's highest civilian honors. 1944. The Royal Commission on Awards to Inventors grants him $52,000. A fortune. Recognition for the patent on radar. By any measure, Watson Watt received recognition, honors, money, prestige. But something's missing. Visit the Imperial War Museum. Look at the photographs from RAF headquarters during the Battle of Britain. You'll see Air Chief Marshal Dowding, fighter pilots, WAF operators, military officers in uniform. You won't see scientists. You won't see Watson Watt. You won't see the engineers who built the system that made victory possible. The history books remember the pilots. The few, as Churchill called them, and rightly so. They were brave beyond measure. But the towers along the coast? The WAF operators staring at green screens? The man who turned radio waves into Britain's shield? Footnotes, afterthoughts. Then comes the irony. 1956, Ontario, Canada. Watson Watt is driving through a small town. A police officer pulls him over, speeding. The officer explains. They caught him on radar, a new speed detection system, radio waves that measure how fast cars are moving. Watson Watt, the inventor of radar, caught by his own invention. He writes a poem about it, self-deprecating, wry, very British. Pity Sir Robert Watson Watt, strange target of this radar plot, and thus, with others I could mention, the victim of his own invention. But the joke hides a deeper truth. Radar didn't just save Britain, it changed everything. Churchill admitted it after the war. The Battle of Britain might never have been won without radar. Not might have been harder, might never have been won. The Germans knew it too. Post-war analysis called radar Britain's extraordinary advantage, never balanced out. They spent the entire war trying to match it, never succeeded. But the Battle of Britain was just the beginning. Radar evolved, adapted, spread, airborne radar in night fighters, hunting German bombers in the dark, naval radar detecting U-boats on the surface, navigation radar guiding aircraft through storms and fog, the H-2S ground mapping radar that helped bombers find targets through cloud cover. D-Day succeeds partly because Allied radar is so far ahead of German technology. Naval vessels coordinate landings. Aircraft provide cover, all guided by radio waves. Modern warfare is unthinkable without it. Every fighter jet, every warship, every air traffic control tower, every weather forecast, every police speed gun. All of it traces back to that green dot on a cathode ray screen in a frozen field outside Daventry. The final irony? Watson Watt was initially dismissed by some of his own colleagues. Too cautious, too willing to deploy imperfect technology, not rigorous enough. But his philosophy was vindicated. Give them the third best to go on with. Third best came on time, saved Britain, won the war. Second best would have arrived too late. Britain would have fallen while scientists perfected their designs. The best? The best never came at all. December 5th, 1973. Watson Watt dies in Inverness, Scotland, age 81, not far from where he was born, 2014. The town of Brechin erects a statue. Watson Watt stands with a Spitfire in one hand and a radar tower in the other. Two symbols of Britain's survival, fighter and shield. The lesson isn't just about radar. It's about innovation under pressure, about choosing the practical over the perfect, about understanding that timing matters as much as technology. Sometimes the greatest inventions come from saying no to the impossible and yes to what actually works. A converted ambulance, a cathode ray tube, a green dot flickering on a screen. Britain becomes an island once more, not protected by water, but by understanding, by science, by the vision of a man who knew that good enough, delivered on time, beats perfect delivered too late. What World War II innovation fascinates you most? Tell me below.